paper.
Yeah.
I know some of them or 10 different classes.
I actually did my sister taking this class.
That's what Lillian said. She goes, I'm not taking this class again.
It's what it says when I'm doing it.
Yeah, so that's all.
And then her said that she was taking honestly for world history. She goes, but I'm taking world history. And then she was like,
Oh, they got a different.
Is that where you got to? Oh, dude, I hope it's something I can get 10 times out. Dude, it is funny. I prefer where he barks. Yeah.
you can change it. Change the stage. I got mine. Oh, I have a card. Because I took her to class and Hi, Coach. You didn't do it. He was in ag. They split up in ag. You did wood shop and then you did building. I'm on a diet, remember? Exactly, what did you do? I'm on a diet.
That's what he said. That's what he said. Yeah, I talked to him today. He's like, party. I was like, Coach, what happened?
What?
You talking about things.
No, I'm present.
He was limping on the street after the wrong one.
Why do you have Miller's tablet? No, my brother did not let you use it. Oh my God!
Kyle.
You guys know?
This one? I got it. That last one.
Didn't they win though?
Flower piece.
This is like 8
Yes,
points.
it's flower.
All the free throws in like 4 minutes. Yeah, mine's been dead all day. Yeah, from I used to go there.
Paramount. Thank you. Yeah. The cream. I feel like it's
Why?
What's crazy? Fight or what?
Like, yeah. Oh my God, I like
No, like, how old is he? The thing that we were saying on
yeah.
What's up?
How old is Coach Jefferson?
Jerry's like 43.
Okay,
Like 43, 42, something like that.
Any tears Achilles?
Yeah, he always Achilles.
He's still with me, like, that's all.
He's not gonna get surgery apparently.
Alright, just so y'all know, for one of my classes I have to record myself teaching, that's why the camera's set up. That's not a big deal. It's not like y'all have to do anything with it. Y'all just kind of sit there, listen, go through the same thing we do any other day. Those of you that weren't here yesterday, we were just in the gym. Yeah, talking about really fun, interesting stuff. I'm sure you all would have really loved and enjoyed it. But no, so there's nothing you missed. I don't know if anybody even missed yesterday anyways. So today, we're going to go over nonverbal communication, and it's going to be on a PowerPoint. I've got an outline for y'all. And what you're going to have to do, just kind of fill it out as we go. I'm going to take it, it's going to be a grade, but I'm also going to give it back, and you maybe need to hold on to it, study it a little bit, because some of these some of the stuff that's on here is going to be on your final exam. So and it's not hard, difficult stuff. And then I'm going to kind of go over a few other things and kind of finish up talking about what we're going to be doing the rest of the week. But anyways, if you have any input, if you have anything you wanted to say, anything you need to say during the PowerPoint, feel free to stop me at any point or interrupt, whatever you want to do. Don't fill this paper because you're playing around and not listening and not doing what you need to do. It's very self-explanatory. You just need to follow along and fill it out as we go. Tomorrow and Friday, there will be a list on the door saying where we'll be, but we'll be in the computer lab researching for our next speech, which we'll be giving next week, right before spring break. It's not hard at all. It's not going to be a hard speech. It's something that the subject's already picked for you. You just have to go in and find the information and then deliver. It'll be, it's something, it's not something that's going to teach you how to inform or persuade or anything. It's something to keep you, it's something to get you better prepared to speak in front of other people again. You are still struggling, you are still nervous with doing that. So it's just history on the day of my birthday. So what you're going to do is you're going to go in, you're going to look up the history and what kind of events or anything else has happened on your day of birth in history. So it's very easy, very self-explanatory, very simple, but I'll go into more detail on that later. But right now we need to go over this. Shouldn't take too long, but it's over nonverbal communication. 80% of all communication is nonverbal. I know it's kind of hard to believe, but the tone of your voice, gestures, body expression, or body position, facial expressions, all of that stuff goes into it. You'd be very surprised at how much you don't pay attention to that, but you already knew that. A lot of the first period was extremely surprised for some reason that 80% of all communication is nonverbal. Tone of voice, the reason people think that's part of verbal, but it's not, because the only thing that is verbal communication is the actual words itself. Because the tone of your voice can give a completely different meaning to a word than the word itself. Because if you say something, sarcasm for example, you can say that word, but it really means something else if you use a different tone with it. Like if it's a yes or no question and it's something that somebody's told you multiple times the answer to, and so they answer with, oh yeah, that probably means no. It's sarcasm. So the only thing that is going to kind of give away what the true meaning is the tone of your voice and everything else that goes into it. Why is it important to understand body language? You see how people react to us and our ideas. And that's kind of how people determine when they know something's wrong with somebody else. When you're around somebody day after day after day after day, you kind of pick up on the way they act and the way they move and the way they do things, because everybody's on a routine. Everybody kind of acts the same every day. Everybody has their own personality, and when something's wrong with them, you know it, because they're not acting the same as they usually do. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Well, I have a lot of big pet peeves, obviously, but this is another one. When there's something wrong with me, of course I'm going to act differently. I hate when people come up and ask, oh, is something wrong? Well, clearly. I'm not acting like I usually do. So, yeah, you can control nervous habits and negative signals as well. When you know how people act when they're nervous, you can typically, and especially if you pay attention to the way you act when you're nervous. Pay attention to the way you act when you're normal, and then whenever you get into those nervous situations, just think about it and portray the same thing that you would whenever you're not nervous. That way people don't know it. Like I tell everybody gets so nervous whenever they get up to speak in front of everybody else. It's not a big deal. It's not that big of a deal. The only time that people know that you're nervous is when you show them that you're nervous. If you get up there and you're nervous as all get out, but you're showing that you're confident and you don't really care, then people aren't going to think twice about it. They're just going to go along and follow you in the speech. But when you start showing that you're nervous, that's when people start giggling and laughing and pointing things out and all that stuff. And typically when you're nervous, that's whenever you start messing up in your speeches as well. Because when you're so nervous that you're thinking about everything else that's going on, you stop thinking about what you're giving your speech over. And people respond and remember more of what they see than what they hear. And I know that's big for me. I can pretty much remember how everybody acts whenever they give their speech. But I can't remember a quarter of what you give your speech over. I can't retain half of the information, what I hear, than what I can see. So, and I say this is more girls than guys, but that's not proven or anything. But driving, guys typically know the road signs, or not road signs, but the road numbers and the directions and all this other. Girls typically go off of sight. What next landmark, next landmark, next landmark. I remember it because of what I've seen before. And I know my mom's bad about that. If she didn't know where she lived, she would never be able to get there by road signs. So because she just knows the same direction every single day. Positive body language. Relaxed posture, you're not all uptight and kind of scrunched together like this if they're trying to give a speech. You're just kind of relaxed, you're going through the motions, your relaxed arms, you're not up in front of you like this, and you're not kind of crossing your arms, they're just relaxed down by your side. I know a lot of people talk with their hands. I know I'm big on that. I talk with my hands a lot. I don't necessarily know if it's talking with my hands, I just move them around a lot. But that's good whenever they're relaxed, but if it's something that's kind of distracting, you should probably try and not do that. Nodding in agreement, it's always nice whenever somebody's speaking. Nod in agreement with them. Say, okay, I understand, I'm going along with you, I'm following. Smiling at humor, I'm pretty bad about it. If something's not funny to me, I'm not going to humor you and smile. It's just, I need to work on it. I think everybody needs to work on something. That's part of what I need to work on. Because when you don't smile at something that's funny, people kind of stop telling you things. People don't want to talk to you about stuff that normally they would. They don't want to come up and joke with you because they're scared of how you'll act. Lean in closer. Now when somebody's talking and you kind of lean in to hear them, or especially at like a table, what I do, and we'll cover this here in a minute, is I like to set up there, I put my forearms on the table, grab my hands together, lean forward, and just kind of show that I'm in there with, or I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I know I'm there listening, I'm engaged, yes, thank you. It was a long night, got back pretty good, well, not as late as the guys, but we got back fairly late. But anyways, using gestures, that's always good as well. It helps kind of those people that don't understand the vocal part of what you're saying, they can pick up about what you're doing with your hands or the way you're acting. Kevin Hart, I don't know if anybody watches him. The reason I think he is so funny, he's probably the funniest comedian I know of, is because of the way he acts whenever he's telling his stories. All the expressions and gestures that he did, it's hilarious. But that's a big part of people understanding what you're trying to say, and that's the reason people laugh so hard, is because they can picture something, but whenever somebody's up there doing it, it's completely different. Negative body language, so body tension, so being really tight, tensed up, arms folded in front of you, that's just kind of closing the crowd off. I know I do it sometimes whenever I don't have anything else to do. I just kind of cross my arms. But what that portrays, and it's not always like this, it shows that you're closing everybody off. You don't want people to come in. You don't want to give anything out. It's just, let's just leave it at that. Speaking hand to mouth. Now, it was in the book, and I wrote it down, but I don't 100% know what that means, speaking hand to mouth. But go ahead and write that down on the paper. Fidgeting, yawning. You can always tell, especially when somebody's lying, and we'll get to this as well, when they start fidgeting a lot. And I told all my other classes, the way you really know if a little kid is lying, and it's typically little kids more so than adults because we learn how to lie. Whether you agree with me or not, you learn how to tell, even if it's a little white lie, you know how to do it. Little kids don't yet. And so all these little things we're going to cover, they do it. The folding of the arms, or the fidgeting, playing with their face, don't want to make eye contact, anything like that. That kind of shows that they're not telling the truth so much. Interpreting nonverbal messages. Don't just look, see. I can look around the room all day long, but not see anything. Focus on something. Don't just play around and look around and make sure that everybody knows that you're trying to pay attention when you're really not. Because I know a lot of people do that, but ultimately they aren't paying attention. What are you doing over here on your phone? Put that away. You've been on this since the bell rang just about. Consider person's normal physical activity, behavior. That's what I was saying earlier. Once you're around somebody for so long, you know what they've done. You know what they do. You know how they act in certain situations. But when then it changes, you know something's going on. Either they're lying, or they just don't feel good, or they had a bad evening, whatever it may be. I know how most of you act. Whenever we go into the computer lab, when I know you're just sitting there not doing anything, I know when you're doing that, because I know how you act typically. Whenever you play around, I know. Look for clusters of signals, not just one. One thing that they do out of the norm isn't going to tell you, oh, something's wrong with them. Now, when they do a multitude of things out of the norm, that's typically when you understand that they aren't right today. Not in some sense of fashion. They are not right today, whether they're upset, mad, whatever it may be. Facial expressions. There are 6 international facial expressions that everybody does in every culture, every part of the world that researchers obviously did research on and came to a conclusion that there's 6. Surprise, fear, anger, disgust, happiness, and sadness. All 6 of those, every culture in the world does it. There are 6 facial expressions that are picked up everywhere. I think y'all can all understand that. I know everybody has that one face that they make whenever they're mad, or whenever they're in disgust, or whenever they get scared, or whatever it may be. And so there was a lot of research put into this, and those are the 6 that they came up with. Did everybody get that? They did? All right. Facial expressions, the different areas that it affects with each emotion. The disgust, it's going to be more in the nose, cheeks, mouth. Sadness in your eyebrows and in your forehead. It tends to droop a little bit more whenever you're sad. Happiness in your cheeks and in your mouth, because typically you're going to be smiling. And then fear is going to be in your eyes and eyelids. Typically people, they always say, oh, I can see that you're scared, because it's in your eyes that you're scared. You don't look the same as when you just got there before you were scared. So it shows whether you think it does or not, and it's hard to control that emotion. Tone of voice, the pitch and timbre. I don't know how to pronounce this one. There was a girl in my school, her name was Timbre, and it was spelled the same way, but people also call it timbre. I don't know. But it shows the true feeling. O can mean a multitude of things. You surprised me. I made a mistake. You're a pain in the neck. You made me so happy. I'm bored. I'm fascinated. I don't understand. So the tone of your voice gives away so much. I know when somebody's not interested in what I'm saying or talking about or discussing with them by the tone of their voice. Typically it's going to be monotone. They're not going to put much emphasis into anything. And so pay attention to that. That's when you kind of learn to switch subjects or to move on or whatever it may be. I think, like I was just telling y'all a little while ago, sarcasm. That's typically in the tone of your voice. I know when my mom or dad or anybody at that matter is mad at me by the way that they speak and talk and all that stuff. And so you have to realize how people react in certain situations. And some people can change the tone of their voice and they're joking, but they want you to think differently. They want you to think that they're actually mad. A lot of people do that playfully. How to tell lying. Decreased hand activity or increased hand activity. It just depends on kind of what that person does. If somebody typically doesn't have that much hand activity, if they're lying, they tend to have more hand activity. If they tend to have a lot and they're lying, they tend to decrease. Did everybody get what they need to write down on that last slide? I can go back real quick. There you go. Go ahead. Or is that the slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Just let me know when you're done. Baseball? How baseball do you yesterday? Anybody know? No. Alright, we're going to go ahead and move on. How to tell line. So like I was saying, the increase, decrease, hand activity just depends on how they work from the get-go. But typically, like I was saying, they'll fidget with their hands together. They'll touch their face a lot. Maybe cover their mouth. That way you can't see what they're actually saying. And honestly, I have never seen this in my entire life. But it's something that always comes up anytime I've looked anything up about lying. Is the pulling on the earlobe. I've never seen somebody just pull on their earlobe when they're lying. Ever. I've never seen that. But you know what? It's everywhere else I've seen. It's everywhere I've researched it anyways.
I've seen old people do it.
Old people do it? Have you?
Stories and stuff.
Oh, when they're telling stories, one of those made-up old wives' tales, they're pulling on their ear and thinking about what they're going to say next. That may be true. Hair grooming, so playing with your hair a lot, flipping your fingers through there, whatever it may be. It's going to be different for guys and girls, obviously. Stiff and rigid posture, increased body shifting, so kind of moving around from side to side and back and forth and can't really sit still. And one way that I know somebody is maybe not necessarily lying per se, but it tends to happen a lot when they lie, when they won't look you in the eye. A lot of people have problems lying to somebody face to face. They can lie through text message or over the phone or through other things, but when it's face to face, some people get a little more clammy. They don't like looking you right face to face because it's disrespectful and they know that. And so it kind of shows. Multicultural messages, and I'll put this one in there because I think everybody in this room should know what this means right here. Everybody knows hook 'em horns, right? Just like everybody knows this is A&M. This is Texas Tech. So all of these things have different meanings. But this one actually had several meanings in different places. In Italy, it's an insult. In Brazil, it means good luck. And in the Hindus, it's a cow. And in the Hindus, it means cow because they're like a prized possession over there. If you kill a cow, it's kind of like killing somebody else. So it's kind of a big deal. But that's what you have to keep in mind when you go, especially those people that like to travel. They want to travel. You have to keep this stuff in mind. You can't just do things that you would normally do in America. Because as you all know, America does things a lot different than a lot of other people. And so going overseas and doing stuff, in order to be respectful, you need to do stuff like this. You need to pay attention to it. You need to not necessarily just throw something up that you think is going to be fun. And it comes out not to be fun. So. In business, body language wins out over verbal communication. I know that if I was in a business presentation, somebody's trying to present something to get me to invest or buy in or whatever it may be, if somebody comes in slouched down, real timid, nervous, shaky voice, doesn't necessarily know what they're talking about 100%, I'm not going to invest in that. It just they aren't confident in what they're selling you, so why should I be confident that you're going to make me money in it? Now, if somebody comes in and there's some businessmen that'll, and I guess you can call them businessmen, salespeople. They're the best of the best. They know how to sell something that is a piece of crap. Believe me. Used car salesman. I think everybody knows that saying. They can sell you something that won't run for 2 days, but they're gonna make it seem like it's the best car in the world. It's all about body, nonverbal communication, body language, all that stuff. It all goes into it. Be confident. Stand up tall, maybe poke your chest out a little bit. Be confident with it. Have a strong tone in your voice. Be friendly, open to suggestions, whatever it may be. Some people take offense to it whenever you won't allow them to say something to you or ask you questions because they think that it's questioning who they are, what they're trying to sell you. Really, some people just want to know what else it's got to do with. They don't necessarily think you're lying to them or anything like that. They just want to know more. Greetings are different around the world. Latinos hug, Japanese bow, French kiss both cheeks, English and Americans shake hands. Romans clasp forearms. Arab citizens say salam. Eskimos slap hands on heads or shoulders. I don't know how to pronounce that word. If anybody knows how, I'd be greatly appreciative. Mayaris? Okay. What is it? Mayaris. All right. Mayaris rub noses. Polynesians embrace each other and rub backs. So that's good. Everybody does everything differently. Now, I wouldn't be comfortable rubbing my nose with anybody else. That's just me. Some people don't like to shake hands in other countries. Some people don't necessarily like to bow in other countries. So, and that's what I'm trying to say. You have to be culturally aware everywhere that you go. And that's why this is a little bit off topic, but anytime you plan to travel, research what you can about that country or that state, wherever it is that you're going to be going. Research something. Find out what they typically act like, what they do when they greet each other. Because I'm sure you all know Americans can come off very conceited, very, I don't know a good word for it. Not interested in anybody else's culture but their own. Because the way they act, and it's shameful. I don't want to be a part of something like that because I'm not that way. But that is a way a lot of people in a lot of countries see us. And so be aware of that stuff. How countries feel about distance. And that's just kind of like distance between me and somebody else or me and a group of people. People that enjoy touching don't mind coming up, rubbing each other's backs, giving hugs, stuff like that. The Middle East, Latin America, Italy, Greece, Russia, all those people don't mind. They don't mind coming up and giving anybody a big hug. Kind of in the middle between enjoying touching, don't mind touching. France, China, Ireland, India. And the U.S. was in that a little bit. They said it's kind of iffy. It just, with the U.S., it depends on who it is. Typically, Americans don't mind hugging and touching and being intimate or whatever when it's friends, family, people that they know. But when it's somebody that they don't know, no way. Just a handshake will do, or something like that. And so, I pretty much just labeled them and don't like touching because U.S. and Canada, they're kind of one and the same. Japan, England, Australia, they all is handshake, this, that. They don't believe in PDA, all that stuff. It's done, but that's just not the standard necessarily. Women versus men. Women respond to touch differently than men. Back in the old days, women were predominantly the nurses. There wasn't that many male nurses. Now, these days, they're starting to become more and more and more male nurses. So then, when I put women's blood pressure go down, men's go up, is because when men get touched by women, their heart rates start racing, or their heart rate goes up, their heart starts racing, their blood pressure shoots up. But whenever, it doesn't really matter to women because they're a woman. Same sex, it's not that big of a deal. But back in the day, that's what would happen. I mean, I'm sure it still does, but more so in the older days. And then there's the types of space. Intimate, under 18 inches. So that would be like telling somebody a secret, a whisper, something like that in the ear. Hugging, kissing, all that stuff, that's intimate because it's within a foot and a half. Personal space, that's conversations with friends, colleagues, just kind of like in your groups. Right now, that's personal space. A foot and a half to 4 feet because you're no further than 4 feet really from anybody in your group, unless it's one of the bigger tables. Let's see, social space, 4 to 12 feet, and public, over 12 feet. So, in a business setting, you're probably not going to be right on top of each other. I'm a stickler when it comes to being around. I don't like it. I don't like being in huge crowds with a ton of people that I don't know, bumping shoulder to shoulder. I'm just very uncomfortable in those situations. It's not necessarily that I'm shy or bashful or anything. I just don't like being all over people that I don't know. I don't like being pushed around and bumped into. And when you go to like really Black Friday shopping, that's going to happen. That's why I don't do Black Friday shopping. Great deals, but it's not worth it to me. Because people are just pushing, shoving, trying to get to everything, and it's just kind of ridiculous. Communication in the workplace. We talk with our vocal cords, but we communicate with our facial expressions, our tone of voice, our whole body. Steps to a professional personality. To be successful, you have to look successful. On our last speech, it is a career path speech. So with that, you have to dress the part. If you want to be a firefighter, you probably won't be able to get a fire suit. But if you wanted to, you could dress as a firefighter, whatever it may be. You need to dress either like a profession you want to be, or you need to have khaki slacks, button up, or polo. So you need to dress appropriate. You need to dress nice. Otherwise, that's a big part of your grade. Actually, last semester I put that as a grade of its own. So if you don't dress right, it's an automatic 0. So you have to do it right. In a professional setting, you don't want to go in there looking like some bum. Just walked off the streets and into a building and you're going for an interview. It's just not the way it works. Like I've told y'all before, if you go in for an interview, the first impression they get is by what you're wearing. Before you ever get the chance to introduce yourself, shake their hand, say anything to them, the first impression comes from what you're wearing. So you have to look professional. Don't smile constantly. I don't think I've ever met somebody that smiles constantly. So if you smile constantly, it's kind of weird. It kind of doesn't seem right, doesn't sit well with me. Cocking your head suggests hesitation. So if somebody says something to you, and then you just kind of like, it kind of throws you for a loop. And ultimately what you're doing is you're trying to think of something else to say rather than what first came to mind, which isn't always a bad thing. Because I know a lot of people struggle with thinking before they speak, and it doesn't necessarily come off too great. Touching your face makes you look nervous. Now that's not always the case. You may not necessarily be nervous, but if you're touching your face and all this stuff, it comes off as you're nervous. And whenever you're up here giving your speeches and you start doing that, I take off points because of that, because that's what it portrays. That's what I'm seeing, and that's what I don't want to see, is you up there nervous and touching your face, pulling on your earlobe, whatever you do. So make sure that you pay attention to that. And that a big part of that is you have to practice. Anybody that delivers speeches professionally, or anybody that's a businessman that goes into business meetings a lot, you think they go in there and just wing it? No. They practice. The same thing goes with you. Even practicing a speech one time will help you a ton. So just practice. It's not that big of a deal, especially when there's a 4-minute limit, or a 4-minute minimum. If it's 4 minutes, Jesus Christ, 4 minutes isn't going to take that long. It's not going to take that much time out of anything else that you've got going on. One thing I enjoy doing is when I'm driving somewhere, and I know, especially for an interview, or I know when I was at UT Tyler, I went home over Christmas break and we had to be back early to present because one of the students in our group was sick during the finals week, so we didn't get to present our final material. So we had to come back in a little bit early and do it before the semester actually started. The entire ride back to UT Tyler, I practiced my part the entire time. It was like 2.5 hours. I was super ready to go. I was overly confident, but it helps. Let's see. Be the first to interact. This past weekend, not this last weekend, but the weekend before, I went to a place called the Texas Leadership Forum, and it was in Austin. It was a bunch of business owners, business professionals, lawyers, stuff like that. And it was more so to make contacts, meet people, get my name out there, let them know who I am. That way, if I ever need somebody, I've got them. I know people. But do you really think all these very successful people were coming up to me asking who I was, what I'm doing there? No, I'm 23 years old. I look 17. I highly doubt that they're going to think that I'm there for business. So I had to interact first. I had to go up to them, talk to them, shake their hands, introduce myself, ask them about themselves first. And then once you start asking them about themselves, they'll start asking you about you. So be aware of that. You have to start networking. And what I learned from this weekend, or that weekend, is your network will eventually determine your net worth. You have to realize that. Because all these people that are in your network and that want to see you be successful and that want to help you as much as they can, They'll do just about anything they can to help you. So that, in a way, determines your net worth. So remember that. Don't be shy and bashful. Get out of your comfort zone. Because when you're in your comfort zone, it doesn't always help. Get out there, shake hands, introduce yourself. Even if it is just introducing yourself, say, hey, my name is Jason Hamilton. Nice to meet you. It helps. It gets your name out there, and sometimes it sticks with them. Keep your body position open, because a lot of people, whenever they give their speeches, they stand just like this. Is that very welcoming? Not at all. You need to face the crowd. The PowerPoint is not for you at all. It's for the audience. It helps them follow along. It helps them keep up with what you're saying exactly. So remember that. I took points off for those people that kept turning. Even if you turned more than one time, I took points off. Stop. And the more that we go into these speeches, the harder I grade. So those people that are making B's, low B's especially right now, those are eventually going to be F's if you keep doing the same thing. Stop doing that. Just work on it. Practice. Be in command when seated. Like I was saying, when I sit down just like this, and I have my hands together, I have my forearms on the table, and I'm leaning forward and I'm ready to listen. Be observant. Let them know that I'm there to listen to what they're saying. And even if you can't pay attention, you just can't for the life of you, but you're sitting in that position, it's going to help. Because when you sit back and you just slouch in, that's going to portray something completely different. And this is what we're talking about, is nonverbal communication. So work on that as well. Work on your handshake, making good eye contact. Whenever you're talking to somebody, whenever you're networking, introducing yourself, don't introduce yourself and kind of look around the room and not make eye contact with them. Because when you're talking to them, they're giving you their eyes, you give them your eyes. It helps. And then recalling the facts, not a big deal. So what we're going to move on to is, I've got something that I need to tell y'all. A lot of people struggled with your attention getter. Orlando, wake up please. A lot of people struggled with the attention getter. You just pretty much walked up here, here's my PowerPoint, and it says tigers or something. My name's Jason Hamilton, and I'm going to tell you about tigers. Man, you got my attention, for sure. I'm ready to listen about tigers. After that, oh yeah. Don't do that. Have something exciting to say, get the people's attention, whether it's a rhetorical question to make them think, or something funny to say, or a funny story, a quotation, a dramatic story. Typically, visual aid's not a good attention getter unless it's something that you have hidden. You pull it out, it's like, whoa, what is that? But I don't necessarily think anybody's going to be able to do that. So let's try and not make and rely on just visual aid for your introduction and to grab people's attention. And I'm going to go into this because we're going to be going into persuasive speeches as far as our next major speech. And so with that, you have to establish a need for them to pay attention. If they don't need to pay attention, they're not going to pay attention. Typically, persuasive speeches are something that's a little bit controversial. And sometimes it's like, well, your health could be at risk if you don't listen and do as I tell you. I'm trying to persuade you to live better, or whatever it may be. So you have to establish that need, that you want them to pay attention, that you want them to do as you're telling, and let them persuade you to do as they say. And then with that, you have to satisfy that need. So give them examples as to how they can fulfill the need that you've given them. How can they see it through? What kind of plan do you have for them? What kind of research do you have? What kind of diagrams, statistics, all that stuff's good. That's when the PowerPoint's good for. I don't mind words when it's graphs and timelines and all that stuff that's going to show them research. It's going to show them statistics, whatever it may be. You have to start doing that. And then see the future in this stuff. The audience experiences the solution. They see, feel, hear, taste what will happen if they do, as you are suggesting, contrasted against what will happen if they do what you are not suggesting. So make sure that you're doing what you need to do to get their attention, and that they're going to pay attention to everything that you have to say. when it comes down to persuasive speech. A lot of people struggle with those because they pick silly, dumb topics. And I'm not saying it's stupid, but this is one that everybody that I know has done it struggle with. Trying to persuade people to play video games. It's hard. It's hard to get people with research and with all this other stuff to convince them to play video games. I've heard a lot of people like to play video games, but it's hard to persuade other people to do it whenever you're speaking on statistics. And especially those people that don't enjoy it in the first place, those people that don't necessarily care about it, and so they're not going to pay attention from the get-go. Think hard and long on these topics. Start thinking about them now. That way when it comes down to it, you're not nervous and you're not screwing everything up that you typically wouldn't. Let's see. Tomorrow, Friday, we will be in the computer lab 216. It's upstairs, obviously. We're going to be in there for sure tomorrow. If I see you playing around, joking, all that stuff, we'll be in the class Friday and we'll start doing speeches Friday. And if you aren't ready, you're not ready, and I'll give you the grade that you've earned. Because I'm not going to deal with people playing around like we did the last week that we were in the computer lab, where about a quarter of all of my classes combined weren't ready to give a speech after an entire week in a computer lab with a weekend to prepare as well. So that's just kind of pathetic in my eyes, and I think that should be pathetic in everybody else's eyes as well. So do what you're supposed to, and we can be in there the full 2 days. Like I said, you should be able to do research immediately. It's going to have you right there. It's going to have you on the website that you need to be on. You tired, son? I can tell. That's good. So, all right. With that being said, there will be the note on the door telling you to just go straight there. I'll take attendance there. Come and turn those papers in. If you didn't get any part of it finished, let me know and I can flip back through there.
What was the last question?
What do you mean? The last question?
The answer.
I didn't put that on there, but I'll take any one since I didn't put that on there. But typically it's the 4 to 12. Thank you. All right. Y'all be ready to work tomorrow. I'm not joking. I'll make y'all give a speech after one day if you don't watch it. And there's not going to be an outline. There won't be an actual outline, I don't believe.
Is there a PowerPoint?
No, you're just going to present. You're just going to go up there and talk and give detail about it. Don't just go up there and say, on my day in history, Abraham Lincoln died, and the Civil War started, and this. Go into detail about it. Don't just go up there and say it because it's going to be 3 minutes long. So, but anyways, if y'all have anything y'all need to do, do it.